We are in episode 4 of the Vince McMahon documentary called Attitude. If you're a WWF fan, you'll know that tone. It's from the Attitude Raw intro. Thorn in the Eye, was it called? One of the best ever. So good. So we're in episode 4 of the Vince McMahon Netflix docu-series, and it's called Attitude. So like I said in the previous episode, the Montreal Screwjob definitely helped kickstart the Attitude Era, and even more so, the Mr. McMahon era. Now, in this episode, you have the infamous Vince McMahon on-screen interview conducted by Jim Ross, the commentator for WWE, and he's interviewing Vince McMahon on Raw. This is on screen as characters, and Vince McMahon pretty much tells JR when he's asked about Bret Hart and the screw job, and he simply says, "Bret screwed Bret." And it's just like, it seems so real, but you know what? It's because it was real, you know? It was just taking part on this fictional TV show called Monday Night Raw. But Vince saying Bret screwed Bret, well, that's what happened. Well, sorry. I mean, it was a screw job, basically. I don't mean Bret screwed Bret, but you know what I mean. Vince McMahon is the one who initiated the screw job. He's just controlling the narrative, saying Bret screwed Bret. But it was a screw job. It was real. So this is what I'm talking about when it comes to the reality of the Attitude Era and the Mr. McMahon character and the blurring of lines between reality and fiction. Because as this documentary goes on further and further, and as you learn more about the Vince McMahon character, person, etc., you're going to notice that the lines are very blurry in between everything. And that's just the way it is. Also, during this time, we have Vince McMahon making a speech on Monday Night Raw about, good guys and bad guys. And he's kind of like, we have the babyface, who's the good guy, and we have the heel, who's the bad guy. And that's how we did things in the past. Well, now we're changing things up, and this is officially the Attitude Era. And this was an official speech and an official pitch into the Attitude Era. This is what I've talked about before, about the WWE having really good production, because they already had like the symbol. They changed from the old golden WWF logo to now this new cool scratchy logo, which looked like pretty much way more badass. And like I opened this video with, Raw had a new kick-ass intro, and the way the video for that intro was filmed for Monday Night Raw was so damn cool. You had like this abandoned warehouse with like glass windows on it, and this swinging camera shot going into the warehouse. The warehouse is on fire. Wrestlers are beating the shit out of each other. You got like friggin' German shepherds barking, while like that crazy thorn in your eye music videos playing. So it was just so cool, man. So cool. And you had like D-Generation X, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, China. They're telling everybody, to suck it, and doing really raunchy things weekly on that show. But fans totally ate it up. And so did I, to be honest. So many people in my school, they were doing like the X sign, the crotch chop basically, and they were like being like, suck it, suck it. Kids getting suspended from school. Good times, And as DX was on the rise, so was the great character and iconic wrestler known as Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, if you're into wrestling, or even maybe not, like I would say Stone Cold's pretty much a pop culture kind of star. And he was the ultimate anti-hero. pretty much the leader of the Attitude Era, I would say. You know, he would throw up the middle fingers, he would drink beer, he'd have like that brawler type of, style in the ring. And he ended up winning the Royal Rumble in 1998, 30 people over the top rope to win a title opportunity at WrestleMania. So he won the 98 Royal Rumble, and he got a chance to face Shawn Michaels for the world title at WrestleMania 14. So during the build of this feud, WWF brought in none other than Iron Mike Tyson. Now that's a huge name. AAA name from the boxing world, of course, former champion. Iron Mike's name was all over the headlines, and let's be real, not for the most positive reasons we could say, but then again, WWF had the fallback of it being the Attitude Era, where kind of like the anti-hero like Austin was glamorized. People were listening to Marilyn Manson, all this type of anti-hero, anti-authority vibe was on the rise. So even though Mike had that kind of history that was kind of skewed, let's say, it didn't matter in a sense. It kind of helped to fuel his character in the Attitude Era. So Mike was brought in as a special enforcer between the Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold match at WrestleMania. And the build to this match was great because there was one moment from Raw in 1998 where Mike Tyson and Stone Cold were in the ring together, and it was a standoff. And there's a point where Stone Cold, tells Mike Tyson, if you don't take your beady little eyes off me, and you can't understand what I'm saying, well, I got some sign language for you. And he flips him the double bird. The fans start to go nuts. And then Mike Tyson reacts. He's like, he looks legit pissed. And he legit pushes Austin. And Austin goes back and he pushes Tyson back. And you have like all this security, all these referees in the ring, Vince is in the ring, and people are pushing each other. And it's so intense and awesome. And it just felt real, watching as a young kid back then. Many of my friends, many of the fans in the arena and all over the world pretty much thought it was real because it did seem real. And I love how you had like Vince McMahon being over the top as well, screaming. He's like, what are you doing? Stop it, stop it. Like trying to be like the CEO, like branded CEO to keep everything good, you know what I mean? It was just like total insanity how Mike Tyson and Stone Cold were completely at each other's throats. So that was really entertaining to see. So eventually you had Austin beat Shawn Michaels for the title at WrestleMania 14. And at that point, WWF just strapped the rocket ships to Austin and sent him into the stratosphere. Because I believe it was the Monday Night Raw after Austin won the title was the first time WWF beat WCW in the ratings. And after that, it was just an exponential, rise of WWF beating WCW every single week. And the margin just got bigger and bigger because they then played on Vince McMahon being the ultimate foe for Stone Cold Steve Austin. And, Vince McMahon was trying to make Austin wear suits, act more mature and like PR friendly, enough, a little bit settle down with the beer drinking and the middle fingers and the cursing and all that. And basically Austin was like, hell no. And he would like give Vince a Stone Cold Stunner, flip him the bird and knock down a couple Budweisers. And this would happen week by week on repeat. It'd be like kind of the same lore on repeat. But it'd be so damn entertaining because the ratings would be off the chart. People would be so into it. You would have like fan attendance just going up and up and up, and people were loving the product. And you have to thank Vince McMahon as part of that because Vince McMahon played the cocky, arrogant CEO so well. He manipulated the crowd, He got like everybody against him. And he just drew so much natural heat that Vince McMahon did a really good job at being like that natural, arrogant asshole, I would say. Almost like it was naturally a part of him, you could say. You know what I mean? So that's it. Like that feud between Austin and Vince is what like really beat WCW at the start there, and just continued to help WWF just dominate WCW in the ratings and garner so much fan attention at the same time. So there was a point in the documentary where the interviewee asked Vince, he's like, so what similarities do you have with the Mr. McMahon character? And Vince answers, well, me? None at all. It's like, come on, dude. That is obviously bullshit. There's no way. It then cuts to many wrestlers and execs like Bruce Pritchard, Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Austin, etc. And they all say Vince McMahon is pretty much an extension of their Mr. McMahon character, or vice versa. It's like Vince McMahon is Mr. McMahon, 24/7, maybe dialed down a bit or dialed up a bit at times. And that's just how it is. We then cut to The Rock, and it shows how he started in the WWF as like a over-the-top babyface, being like shoved down the fans' throats, kind of. And this eventually turned him into a mega heel because the fans didn't want to accept him as a babyface, chanting Rocky sucks and even die Rocky die. And then as soon as Vince heard that crowd reaction, he was totally fine with it because he saw the money. The crowd reaction and the buzz equaled money. So, that's how it was. The late 90s to the early 2000s. It was a very edgy time, especially in the wrestling business. And that's what it was. Like, you had the anti-heroes, the mega heels, even though Vince McMahon said, good guy, bad guy, that's done with. But you had those really true, realistic type characters who would, interact with the fans, and the fans would interact with them. And it would kind of get like that true, no filter reaction from the wrestlers and from the fans. And that would just kind of represent that era of the late 90s and early 2000s. So this episode ends with the story of Owen Hart, brother of Bret Hart. And this story is always a tough one to get through. And basically the deal is Bret Hart went to WCW in the end of 1997 after the screw job in WWF. But Owen decided to stay in the WWF. And there was a pay-per-view called Over the Edge in May of 1999 in the WWF. And at the time, Owen was playing a character called the Blue Blazer. And what the Blue Blazer would do as part of his entrance was he would drop down from the rafters, kind of like Sting in WCW, and he'd have like a rope attached to his back, attached to a harness, of course. And he would just kind of like drop in the ring and then kind of like undo the harness and just kind of like roll around a bit. It was kind of like a goofy entrance because he was a comedic character at the time. But anyways, something went horribly wrong during this pay-per-view, and the safety device malfunctioned in some way, and Owen went straight down into the ring onto one of the turnbuckles, actually. Hit the turnbuckle, and he pretty much died instantly or shortly after that. And Vince says this all happened during a blackout in the arena, which means they would have been playing a pre-tape on the Titantron, or maybe running some ads, so they dimmed the arena lights and stuff like that. So he says nobody would have really seen it, basically. But come on, man. I mean, even though the arena's dark, Owen basically dropped to his death, right? And if you watched the Dark Side of the Ring episode about it, it's a series by Vice, and I believe it was either 2023 or 2022. They have an episode about Owen Hart and the story of Owen Hart and everything that happened. And it's yeah, pretty scary, like how deep they go and explain how everything happened. It's very chilling and scary. So we then have JR, the lead announcer at the time. He then announces to the live pay-per-view broadcast to the camera that Owen Hart has died. And this is, you got to remember, this is only the second match into the card. This is the second match into the card. There's probably like 4-5 matches left or whatever. So they're just getting started. And at that time, they could have ended the show right there. They could have said, oh, this is it. We've had a horrible accident. We need to stop the show. And that's it, you know what I mean? But Vince McMahon said that the show has to go on. The show must go on. That saying, as sick as it is. So that's what exactly happened. Vince McMahon said the show has to go on. You had people cutting promos still, going to the ring, wrestling in the ring, where Owen Hart just dropped to his death pretty much moments before. And it's a very sad and shitty situation, basically. And yeah, it's just the way it is. Owen Hart was a great guy and a great talent. And rest in peace, Owen. And that was pretty much it for the episode. I'll catch you on the next breakdown. And take care.